Oh hi, these are the new iPads. So we have new Pros, new Airs, and probably more importantly a cheaper 10th gen iPad, with a $100 price cut down to $349, making it the new entry-level model, as the 9th gen iPad, with its chonky bezels and home button, is no longer in the iPad lineup for 2024. So now we have 4 models to choose from rather than 5, which makes things a little bit easier. Although to keep things interesting, Apple have also added a new 13-inch iPad Air if you want a monster tablet screen while also saving £500 versus the similarly sized Pro, and they've introduced a new Magic Keyboard for the Pros and the Apple Pencil Pro. There's going to be a lot of me saying the word Pro, I'm afraid, and there was actually an audible laugh in the crowd as yet another device was given the Pro treatment. And even more surprising is it actually works with the iPad Airs as well as the Pros, but I'll come back to this in a second. So let's talk about the iPad Pro first, and for me the most exciting upgrade is this OLED screen, or Ultra Retina XDR as Apple are calling it. And the good news is both the 11 and the 13-inch Pros get this, and it's a first for the iPad, even if the Android competition have been using OLED for years now. But it means inkier blacks, richer colours, there's no blooming or light bleed, and with what they're calling the tandem OLED display, which is essentially 2 OLED panels on top of each other, we're getting 1000 nits of full screen brightness and 1600 nits of peak HDR, which is very impressive for an OLED on a tablet. But wait, there's more, because like their desktop monitors, we also have a nano texture option. It's $100 more, and it is only available on the 1 and 2 TB models, which makes it quite a high barrier to entry, but the etched glass diffuses the light around you and significantly reduces reflections. Straight on, it does look very good, but off angle you can see that diffused lighting does make it harder to see. But considering you'll have to spend at least $1,700 to get this, it's not going to be something most of us will have to worry about. But certainly if you're going to be using your iPad outside a lot with very harsh ambient lighting, then you probably would want to consider the nano texture, as it's going to help maintain that color accuracy even if you've got bright lights around you. The other benefit of OLED is you get lower response times. We're talking sub 1 millisecond, so motion, gaming will all feel just a little bit smoother. The headline upgrade though has to be this new M4 chip, because they've completely skipped the M3 and gone straight in with the first M4 we've seen, promising ludicrous amounts of performance. In fact, double the rendering and 50% faster CPU performance over the older Pro's M2, which now makes its way to the iPad Air. Why do we need an M4? Well, we don't really. I mean, Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and some apps like Procreate have been optimized for it, and I'm sure we'll see more apps updated to take advantage of this crazy horsepower over the next few months. But really, until we see some major iPad OS updates, which maybe we'll see at WWDC next month, and new, more desktop-level features, again, like 2 years ago with the M2, it just all feels a bit wasted. But I'll test this properly in my full review and see if it actually makes a difference. However, not all M4 chips are made equally. There is a top spec M4 if you go for the 1 or 2 TB model. Not only does that double the RAM to 16 GB versus 8 on the 256 or the 512, but you also get a 10-core CPU rather than a 9-core CPU. Will that make much of a difference? Well, I haven't been able to test it, probably not, but certainly if you want the absolute top dog fastest iPad possible, you're gonna have to get yourself a 1 TB version. And more importantly, I think they've doubled the storage. This has been the biggest bugbear of mine, but Apple has finally doubled the storage on both the Air, going from 64 to 128 gigs, and the Pro, 128 up to 256, which is more than enough for most of us. And finally, on the outside, the Pros have gone on a bit of a diet. They're both thinner and lighter than before, with the 13-inch being Apple's thinnest ever device, at just 5.1mm, which is pretty nuts actually, considering what they've packed in here. No change to battery life or sound quality, which to be fair is actually quite impressive given that they've made it thinner, although I am obviously curious to see if Jerry Rig Everything Zach is going to attempt a bend test given how it's thinner and lighter. But certainly we are going to have to see if it holds up in terms of durability. But they have added a new graphite sheet in the housing and also copper in the Apple logo to improve the thermal performance by 20%. They've also finally moved the camera to the side, making it centered to you when you're on a video call in landscape mode, which is how most of us would use it, with the Apple Pencil magnetically charging above it. And best of all, it does now come in space black, alongside good old silver. Now the cameras are actually the same. We have the same 12 megapixel rear camera and the same front camera as well, although it moved to that new side central position. The downside is we have actually lost the ultra wide camera, which was a bit of a surprise, although I can't say I've used it that much myself, although they have added an adaptive true tone flash. To be fair, with my briefings in that building, Apple have shown me quite a few demos that sort of take advantage of the M4 and the new Pencil Pro, but a lot of the apps and the features could also be done on previous iPads as well, but perhaps they're just a little bit faster, taking advantage of the faster neural core, faster CPU and GPU. There's nothing really exclusively new for the new chip, but I'm gonna have to test that more for my full review. So that's the Pro, but what about the iPad Air? Well, this won't take nearly as long as it's a fairly minor refresh. We get the M2 chip, which is up to 50% faster than the outgoing M1, but it probably won't feel that much different as it's still locked to 60Hz. There's still no 120Hz ProMotion here. On the plus side, as I say, they have doubled the storage. It now starts at 128 gigs. We also get landscape stereo speakers with spatial audio support, and actually the bigger 13-inch has double the bass according to Apple. And it comes in blue, purple, starlight, or space grey. But the big news is we now have a 13-inch iPad Air. As I say, this is £500 cheaper than the equivalent iPad Pro, and while it is a more basic 60Hz LCD screen rather than a 120Hz OLED, if you just want a big tablet for watching shows, for multitasking, or pairing with a Magic Keyboard and using it as much like a laptop as you can, then for $200 more than the 11-inch, it's an interesting option. As for the new Apple Pencil Pro, well, it packs in a bunch of extra sensors, so now you can squeeze it and you can roll it, which depending on the app lets you switch tools or adjust your brushes. It is pretty nifty, although as it says on the tin, this is definitely more for pro artists rather than doodlers or note takers, especially when you consider it's $50 more at $129. Personally, I'm more excited for the refreshed Magic Keyboard. It's thinner with a more premium metal finish, we get a bigger trackpad with haptic feedback, a function row, and it comes in 2 colors. Although this new version is just for the pros, the Air still gets the older one. But combined, a thinner and lighter iPad Pro with a thinner and lighter keyboard, that's a nice upgrade considering most of us use iPads as more of a travel companion. But we have to talk about pricing, and I've got good news and bad news. The good news is that the iPad Air has stayed the same in the US at $599, and we have double the storage, so that's a pretty good deal. And actually in the UK, this had a price cut. Previously the Air was $669, now it's $599. I think that's due to currency fluctuations, so we're actually getting a much better deal here in the UK. Unfortunately, the Pro has got more expensive. In the US, it's $200 more, although again, you are getting double the storage, so if you factor that in, perhaps it's more like $100 more, but a very expensive iPad has got even more expensive. To make things worse, your old Apple Pencil and old Magic Keyboard won't work with the new ones. So if you do already have a full setup with an iPad Pro and you're going to upgrade to the new one, you're going to have to get all new accessories, which is going to make this very expensive. I think realistically, only if you've got maybe a 2018 or 2020 iPad Pro, is this perhaps worth the upgrade. And as I say, I think that base 10th gen iPad for $349 is going to be very popular. So that's it for my first impressions. If you have any questions at all, drop a comment below and I'll try to address those in my full review coming soon. Are you going to order one? And if so, are you going to go for the Air or the Pro or none of the above? And it's just all a bit boring. What do you think? Hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chap. And probably back at the studio, even though this is very nice. We don't get many sunny days at the moment.